evening, everybody, and welcome to our Dangerous Wednesdays. A little bit later than normal, but still just as dangerous. So, hello, and welcome. And here tonight, I've got, of course, the ineffable and the unstoppable, unstoppable. He's the unstoppable Dungeon Master. Hello, Dan.
Can neither be stopped, stuffed, nor effed. Any of those things. Hello, everyone. I feel like I haven't been on the show for ages. We obviously had two shows off where we did other things, and I missed two before that. So it's been like a month since I've done a normal Dangerous Wednesdays. I'm very excited.
Well, we're excited to have you, mate. Good to see you on board. And of course, we've got the ineffable, the unofferable, the unstoppable Ross Harmston with us. Hello, Ross.
Hello, great to be here. I like the fact that we are matching today, James.
Yeah, we are. Somebody didn't get the brief. Who I am, the new lumberjack king, and you instead decided to rock the same. I mean, I'm flattered. I'm flattered, mate.
I thought I'd wear a beanie though, because I'm doing that, when you have lockdown hair, so you're just like, it's too long and I can't be bothered to comb it or put gel in, so I just put a hat on.
Yeah, I see that. I see you've gone for a black background and a black beanie.
Yeah, so I kind of, it just looks like my head's really, really tiny, and I got a really tiny forehead.
Right, good. Well, that's excellent. So how you been, boys? How's your new year shaping up?
It's so cold. What's this like?
Are you
I haven't left my house in a week and it's still freezing. Like, this isn't a fashion choice. This is just I'm just cold. This is the weather to stay indoors and play games, isn't it? And we played some good games recently. It's nice to be back doing that.
We have, yes, we have indeed. So I'm just going to get up the chat with the Dangerlings. Yes, it has been very, very cold. What about you, Ross? How have you been feeling?
I have been feeling on opposite to Dan, hot in my room. My room is boiling. It's got a radiator, which is a length of a wall. And it's pretty hot when it gets into the evening. In the day, it's quite chilly, but then, in the evening, I'm like, oh, Jesus, it's so hot. Especially with this hat on, I'm like, even more hot. Oh, Jesus, I'm so hot.
Is your heater called Jesus? Is your heater called Jesus?
Yeah, Jesus. Is actually.
Jesus the heater. How splendid. Hello, of course, to everyone who's watching. Hello, Matt. With your new song request, Toybox, best friend. Hello, Amy. Hello, Chris. And hello, Daniel7, who says hello and then other words. So there we are. And as Chris says, things are getting steamy in Casa del Harmston. Yes, they are. Yeah. Oh, yeah, baby. Well, I'm glad you're doing well. It is cold, and it is both cold and hot here on Dangerous Wednesdays, just the way we like it. We like it all, different.
What about you, James? How are you?
Oh, well, I didn't think you'd ask, but I'm doing all right, thank you. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd start to the year. I don't think anyone wanted. We're in tier 5 now, whatever that means. Never left any of the other tiers, to be honest. So
soon we're going to level up and be in tier 6.
Yeah, I know, right? When do I get my sword and my crown? That's what I want to know. I want some level up goods.
We've only got to get it a bit worse, and coronavirus will have out-leveled the Danger Club.
Yeah, that's true, actually. That is very true. I'm not sure if you should feel proud or ashamed, Dan. Well, now I know that we got on your news articles today, so should we crack on and head into the news section? Ross, would you like to do the stinger?
Yes. Din 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 din. Din 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 din. Danger news, danger news. Danger news, danger news. Danger news, not copyrighted this song. Danger news. Danger news. Ching!
That's right.
I told you I'd be back.
Yes. In fact, is it because I'm wearing this T-shirt? Is that why you did that?
Maybe.
Thank you very much. That's right. Danger News coming to you from the future today. A future ruled by robots and laser guns. It'll be better, I promise.
Definitely better than Terminator Salvation.
You are. Wow. Okay. Come at me, bro. So who wants to say the first piece of news? Dan, I know you're busting with news. Look at you.
I've got so much. I'm so excited to be back on the show. You can tell I've been just boring my wife with random news. There's been loads because it's a busy time of year anyway. and because we haven't really had a chance to do any news since Christmas. So there's been a few things which we'll rattle through. The first one, don't worry, we're going to get to the big, exciting one, and we're going to talk about that at length because it's really fun. The first one I wanted to show you arrived today in Danger Club Studios. We have some spell card decks.
Check it out.
And we have an advanced GM screen. It's behind me over there, behind us now. That is thanks to our brilliant patrons. That is what some of the money that you have put into this show has allowed us to do. So we are allowed to. We now have, hopefully, nice and accurate on our spells. We've got a set for Drum. We've got a set for James. I've got the GM screen for me, which has got sort of trap DCs and monster DCs and identify and recall knowledge stuff and things like that. And it's exciting because it's one thing we're very good at is the improv and doing the funny stuff. And we know we have fun with that. But we also need to play the game sometimes, and so stuff that helps us to actually play the games and to get the rules right and play it properly is fantastic. And so this is stuff we couldn't have afforded on our own. So thank you, patrons, for that.
It is true. And there's very quickly, of course, spell cards, if you haven't come across them before, are very, very useful. All the spells to the different classes are in there, for the arcane one, for instance, for the wizards, so that at the beginning of the day you can prep your hand by just getting the cards. It's very, very useful. Thank you so much. I shall be giving you a shout out when I use them on the podcast.
And then you sort of throw them, and when you want to use them, you throw them at the DM like Gambit from X-Men.
Yeah,
that's how it works. Using them.
Is that in the online fighting game where he said connect for something on a connect card for no reason? I don't know what, a kinetic card maybe or something. I don't know. He had to say it every time. Just before we continue, I would like a leggings check.
A leggings check. We are on the pink today. There we are. Pink with stars.
Look at that. It's like you're being mauled by a starfish from the 80s. Tremendous. Persinio says, we need to play the game sometimes is peak DCP. Yes, it is. I suppose we should play the game now, guys. Come on. Oh, my God.
Like, you guys have literally rolled your eyes at me sometimes when I've made you roll initiative. And it's just like, oh, what? It's like, I feel like a teacher when I'm like, all right, come on, guys, settle down. Never. It's that kind of reaction. It's like, oh, I have to fight something.
Some of the best games are the ones that you don't even roll any dice in.
Definitely.
Those are the best ones.
Of course.
But you need to have, you've got to play the game as well to have that thing. I mean, we've got a doozy of a combat episode coming up next week.
We do,
but lots of fun things that can come out of that, and we're going to get into that more with the slithering. I'm excited about the advanced GM screen because it gives me a lot of tools that I can use on the fly to mix things up without having to stop and look things up. Yeah,
including a small hammer to throw at Ross every time he sort of slows the game down and says something inane.
I mean, of course, it's coincided, having these wonderful physical tools with the time when we're probably going to be recording remotely for a few weeks. But but we will still find a way to get them to everyone. We'll make use of that. These are a long-term fun thing. Not like when in first edition when I handmade an entire binder full of Druid spell cards for Drummond, and the next week we moved to second edition and the binder was useless.
He's still got it, and he still looks at it sometimes and cries.
All that ink just used.
It cost significantly more than these cards did by the time I bought us enough ink and card and binding bits.
Very well. Let us not dwell upon spilt past ink. What is another piece of news? Ross, have you got any news today? Yes.
I don't have any news this week, so I'm all ears on Dan's news.
So that means I don't think Dan's got any new news. So we're gonna move on to our next segment. Come on then, Dan. Let's have some more news.
I'm gonna make ghost noises down this microphone.
The next story. Don't make ghost sounds.
So we've got a couple of partnerships that have been announced by Paizo that are exciting in their own ways. One of them is with a company called Level Up Dice. They're producing ranges of dice which are tailored to specific character classes. Not quite sure how they're going to work yet. I suspect we may have quite a bit more to be saying about Level Up Dice in the next few weeks. We've been having a chat with them, but we'll leave it there for Level Up Dice. But they've announced they're a partnership. The other one that has announced a partnership is the makers of a role-playing game called Savage Worlds have signed a deal to produce an officially licensed Savage Worlds spin-off of Rise of the Rune Lords, the Pathfinder Adventure Path. So Savage Worlds is a gaming system different, very very different to kind of D&D or Pathfinder. It's designed to be able to be used in lots of different settings. They're sort of their most popular ones are modern settings and Wild West settings, and a lot of it hinges around doing big, crazy, exciting stunts that grant you extra dice that do things. So they're making, apparently they've had, their community has been sort of unofficially making mods of Pathfinder adventure paths for years, and so they've gotten the rights to do an official one. So it's quite exciting because this is the same year that we're going to be getting a 5th edition version of Kingmaker as well. So we're starting to get, because Paizo started off as a company that wrote adventures to be used in other game systems, and now we've come full circle where some of the Pathfinder game systems are now being transposed into other game systems. I think that's quite exciting. I'm up for seeing, because the thing I've always loved about Paizo is the writing, and so seeing that used in, getting to try that with different mechanics, that could be quite interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious if any of the Dangerlings have played Savage Worlds or any of the spin-off games like that. I think Weird West is one of them. But that would be something we could cover more if anyone's interested in Savage Worlds.
Absolutely. So that's very exciting. And Ross, a quick question. Do you think Savage Worlds will be better than Savage Lands, the beloved computer game that we played together?
Of course not. Savage Lands, go and find it on Steam. It's one of the best Steam games you can buy. And that's a Ross recommendation. Also, Savage Worlds as well. So if you want to, test that out as well, go and get it.
Okay, so you're standing by your Ross recommendation, Ross.
Yeah, and you can find that partnership, I think, on Kickstarter, can't you, Dan?
Yes, yeah,
they're on Kickstarter
for it now.
Yeah, so go on Kickstarter and back it if you want to see some Savage Worlds and Paizo mashup.
There we go, Savage Worlds and Paizo mashup. Excellent, thank you very much. And have you? We got some more news.
We've got one more small one, and then we have the big news of the week. Big news. Small news, we got a couple of additions to the Pathfinder development team, which were announced. So Michael Sayer and James Case, who were both part of the organized play team, they have moved to officially join the development team for Pathfinder. We were expecting it. We've had some people leave at the end of last year, so we were expecting some new people. But yeah, they come from organized play. So if you are familiar with Pathfinder Society, if you've played a lot of that sort of side of the game, you will probably be familiar with their work. So maybe that will give you an idea of what we could expect to see coming up in some of the future books in it. So it's always nice. Congratulations to them on joining the team. It's always nice to have new voices.
Well done. Indeed it is. Congratulations. So good news.
And finally,
well, actually, before we go to that, there's a bit of discussion in the chat. Chris, I'm just keeping it, because I know you like to wait. Chris was like, Dan said 5e Kingmaker, but he meant Starfinder, I think. Way to get me briefly excited, Thompson. And then
no.
Greg comes in. No, there is a 5e bestiary for Kingmaker, but that project seems delayed.
This is the Kingmaker Anniversary Edition or Special Edition or something edition,
right?
Which is a mega project. It's been run. I think it's being run by Legendary Games. It's not an official Paizo affiliate. It's like a licensed product, third-party one. So it was kickstarted, and it has ballooned because of all the stretch goals, because of how many pledges they got. So it is going to be it's an expanded Kingmaker First Edition, because Kingmaker's a first edition adventure. So an expanded one of that, which includes lots of content from the Kingmaker game, the video game, which has been turned into the role-playing game, and sort of additional high-level content and stuff that lets you play up to level 20. In addition to that, they're doing a second edition version of Kingmaker, and they're also doing a 5th edition version of Kingmaker. As Greg says, I think it is probably mostly going to be the best. It's going to be like rules of how you convert this thing into 5th edition. Right. But it's the closest we've had to a 5e version of a Pathfinder Adventure Path. So it is exciting to see it in that way.
Yeah, I guess all the things can translate over to 5e apart from just the monsters, and that's all you really need. So that's quite cool.
Yeah, and I've got an inside scoop from a man who knows his stuff that there's going to be a Starfinder Kingdom Building AP like Kingmaker.
There is. There
Oh,
is
right. Cool.
is
Glad you know about that
cool.
already. Cool. I thought it was being.
I can't remember what it's called. We've talked about it on the show like
I
a
know.
couple of times.
Greg just said it in the chat.
Okay. Well, yes, we are getting. We are getting. I can't remember what it's called. I'm sure Greg will know it, but it's the one that's coming after Fly Free or Die. Is we're getting that, and it's going to be the last of the kind of regular release APs for Starfinder, because they're going to a slightly less regular release schedule after this to accommodate the fact that they're doing standalone modules for Starfinder that we talked about before Christmas. So lots of exciting Starfinder stuff coming down the pipeline.
Aren't Owlcat Games working on a new Pathfinder game as well?
They're doing Wrath of the Righteous, yes.
Yeah, that'd be quite cool.
Which would be great, because Kingmaker was a brilliant game, but I haven't played much of it because I'm playing Kingmaker as a tabletop at the moment. I don't want to spoil it too much. So so it will be good to be able to have one that I can just dive into and play all of. But yeah, they were fantastic games. The Owlcat game, I really, really like it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so coming on to our last insignificant piece of news, Dan, would you like to finally get this off your chest?
Gunslingers! Ooh, we're getting guns in Pathfinder.
Yay!
Oh my goodness. This dropped almost out of nowhere. So towards the end of last year, December of last year, we got it announced that we were going to get a playtest, 2 brand new classes dropping on the 5th of January. I wasn't on the episode of Dangerous Wednesdays when that news dropped, but it was fine. It was well reported. James reported that he'd had a haircut. That was the big news.
It was very important, and I think it had longer term ramifications than Gunslingers in Pathfinder. Frankly,
Yeah.
I also need to get a haircut again. So just
less
lay it out there.
divisive, I'm sure. Everyone loves your haircuts.
Tweet me hair.
Not everyone loves Gunslingers. So they were announced. The details of it were announced yesterday, and it's not just and the format of how it's going to come out. So at some point this year, towards the end of the year, I guess, we are going to be getting a new book, a brand new Pathfinder Rulebook. It's going to be a big one. It's going to be sort of similar to Secrets of Magic, which is coming out soon, or to probably around sort of Bestiary Advanced Player's Guide kind of length. It is called Guns and Gears. And it is all about tech, vehicles, guns, weird stuff like that. It is really exciting. And it's going to have 2 brand new classes in it, the Gunslinger and the Inventor, which both sound really fun. I have all of the details on it, and I imagine this will take a while to talk through. But so the book itself, let's talk about the book first, and then we'll have a look through the classes, because they've released the playtest versions of those classes, so we can have a little look at them. One thing you should know about the 2 classes, just like they do in the Starfinder playtests recently, these 2 classes are playable in Pathfinder Society. So you can pick up a pre-made of these characters, you can play it in Society, and you can earn rewards that are then transferable to one of your permanent characters. But the playtest only runs until the 5th of February, so you only have 3 weeks to get this in. So if you want to play one of these characters in a group in organized play, get in now and have a go with it, because they won't be around for long, and you will have fun doing this in organized play because they're really silly. So what do we get in the book? Because they've got a product page up for it now, so we see a little bit of the product, a little bit of stuff in that. Gunslingers, as we remember from first edition, we didn't have one. Don't have one in the Danger Club. Because we moved to second edition, really glad we didn't have that, because that would have been a real pain trying to homebrew how a gunslinger works.
Literally no rules for it at all.
Yeah. There was nothing at all. But it's the one that everyone has asked about every time that there's there's new classes coming out. It's the thing people were quite surprised that they weren't in the core rulebook. And I think it's because of all the infrastructure that goes with them, with like setting and the equipment and everything like that. So I can see why they were left out. But now they're coming through. So we're going to get 2 new classes. Interestingly, they're uncommon classes. They're the first classes that have got uncommon rarity. And the rarity system is a way of kind of deciding what you can pick. Uncommon rarity means you need your GM's approval to play one of these classes. we've had some ancestries that are uncommon, and we've had some like abilities and things like that. But it's a thing where it's like, don't just assume because it's in the book that you can take it. With most groups, obviously, you're going to be talking to your GM anyway about what you want to play in it and what they want in their campaign. But it's to get around this thing of being like, if you want to run a version of Pathfinder that doesn't have guns, because not everyone likes having black powder weapons and things like that in their fantasy setting, you can absolutely do that. You just say it's uncommon, so it doesn't exist in our world.
Just get that. That's a very good issue, because of course it is something that, you know, some people like their swords and sorcery staying swords and sorcery rather than all this sort of, you know, guns and stuff like that. Ross, just going to put it over. How would you feel about sort of a black powder character in a fantasy setting? Would you be cool with that, or would you worry it would break the dynamic? I know, I mean, as a general question.
Yeah, I'd let it if I was a GM and if I was a player. Like, you know, I think they're a cool character class to play. I've played one before, and I would definitely play one again. If there was ever a chance to play one in the Danger Club podcast, I would do it with Dan's approval, obviously. I mean, we've already had a gunslinger, so I'd argue the case. I'd be like, well, there's already one in there, Dan. So you should allow me.
I mean, Big Mike wasn't so much a gunslinger as a child that you gave a gun to.
Yeah, I thought Thingy was as well. The bounty, the guy that no, it doesn't matter.
No spoilers, please. Spoiler-free area.
There has been a bounty. There has been a gunslinger in the game. That was when we were first edition, though. That wasn't.
Okay.
Yes.
Technically, we're in the same world, so
yes.
Yeah, I'd like to. I think it does create a bit of an issue, but like, I think they're an interesting thing to play, and I like the fact that, you know, you then have to start thinking about how your powder is kept and like all that sort of stuff. I think that's a really interesting way of dealing with it. So
your conversation with that player would probably be, yes, okay, you can do this, but let's sit down and talk about the I'm going to be hot on this. I'm going to be hot on how many shots you've got, if your powder's wet, no leaping into rivers, all this kind of stuff. Is that how you play it? What about you, Dan? How would you approach it if I came to the table and said, okay, Dan, new player, I want to be a gunslinger?
I like them. They are of particular flavour. You know, they are a particular thing. I think I like them to be quite rare. I'm glad they've got this uncommon thing. I hope that in society play, when they launch, they will be something you have to earn, something you have to unlock through play, so that you're not turning up to a table with loads of gunslingers. As much fun as it was at the society game where Ross and I turned up at level 1 and both played gunslingers, who between us didn't quite have enough ammunition for the entire adventure, and so had to keep borrowing it from each other. The Gun brothers I have very fond memories of William and Bartholomew Gunn, trying to solve everything with guns.
Fantastic. Yeah. I think it is definitely something to be kept an eye on. Greg said that it's a neat solution. Where's that gone? I'm sure he said that. A neat fix to a common hot topic. Although Eric comes with a very good point. Could you imagine Jam with a gun?
Oh my God!
I can now. There are rules for it.
But the powder is all over me, Father. Is the line that Eric put in there? That's exactly what Jam
got a gun.
And a question.
Yes.
Will Ed Johnson become a gunslinger now by Rogvergurg? By Greg?
Well, this is actually an interesting point about that. He totally couldn't he? Well, I'll bring that back up when we talk about the gunslinger specifically, because I did think about Ed Johnson when we got to the build. Let me quickly run down the other stuff that's in the book, and then we'll look at the classes in detail.
We will do. Just one thing. A big shout out to GWatt330. Thank you I haven't seen you on the chat before. Welcome. I'm excited for the Inventor and the construct/androids ancestry.
Yeah, so, that's what I want to talk about now. Actually,
yeah. So I just want to give a shout out there. So carry on.
No, that's great. That's what we want. So we get one new ancestry with this book, and it's a really interesting one. It's called the Automaton, and we don't know very much about it. All we know from like the product description is it said it's for players who want to create a customizable construct to play. So you're basically going to be a robot. And you will have ancestry options that will be to do with changing up your body and things like that. So we have the Warforged in Eberron, who are a similar kind of idea.
Yes.
So that's your robot players. And obviously we have Android and Starfinder. The interesting thing is that in Pathfinder from next month, when the Ancestry Guide comes out, we will have androids playable in Pathfinder. And so there is, it seems strange to me that you've launched there are two synthetic characters coming out in the same year, Ancestries. It sounds like kind of, androids are much more like sort of Blade Runner-y synths kind of thing, or replicants, aren't they? What are they called in Blade Runner?
Replicants, yeah.
Yeah. So they're much more like that. They're similar. They're more on that sort of endoscope or the alien kind of androids. That's the kind of flavor that they go for. Whereas I think the idea of this is you are literally a robot. Golem, which I'm,
Yeah, well, exactly, because I thought golems as soon as you said that, actually, and, sort of images of Caremaga and all the big things clumping around. Because, of course, the point you're making there, which is a right one, is that androids are the product of far high technology, whereas surely we're going to be looking at clunking steam-powered stuff and real kind of things like this if it's constructed this time.
There's a more spiritual, because androids in Pathfinder have got a god. There was a whole storyline through some adventure paths and organized play that is to do with awakening their god, Cassandra, I believe, and they are to do with Numeria a lot, and they've got they've got a huge lineage of stuff. Whereas I think automatons they're likely to be connected to the Jiskar Imperium, who are something which we've not really touched on. There was a load of it in one of the adventures we played in Lockdown Legends, but I rewrote it all to fit the settings. We didn't encounter any of it. But they come up in organized play a lot as well. So I will be really interested to see how these two classes differ and where the flavor is on that. But I do definitely want to play a robot, especially if I can be a robot with a pet robot. That just sounds lovely to me. That's about like being a Leshy druid with a Leshy familiar. I'm well up for that.
You could even have a dynamic. I just occurred to me. You could have two players in one party, one being the maniacal master and one being the automaton that was created by that person. So you could have inter-party
so
stories.
Good things
There's
there.
so many things, and that's just scratching a surface. Quickly, what do you think, Ross?
Yeah, I was going to say it's basically like Beelzebub.
He would go mad. Can you imagine? What would a robot version of Jam Jam be called?
I don't know, but he's also got what's his name? Bang Bam Bam, which is a rock kind of golem thing. So it's kind of like that.
Interesting.
Maybe I should have made Beelzebub as an inventor rather than a mutagenist.
Well, you could do, although I'm sure you could multiclass.
That's true.
Is this the sort of thing you could multiclass down, or is this going to be something you're going to have to put all of your attention into?
I mean, you wouldn't be able to multiclass into an automaton, obviously, because it's an ancestry rather than a class. You would be able to pick up a class archetype for the Inventor or Gunslinger. They will come with class archetypes just like anything else.
Nice.
And the way they are used is the Inventor is more unique, but like Gunslinger is set up because one of the things we're also getting in this book is we're getting guns. We're getting all the rules for firearms, and we're getting lots of guns. Like we're like the Matrix now. We're going to get everything from dueling pistols, flintlocks, right up to apparently we're getting gun blades, which that's all they've said about them. They haven't explained exactly what that means, but I suspect from looking at some of the classes, they're going to be pretty wild.
I have not seen a gunblade since Final Fantasy VIII. So there we go. That's the last one.
That kind of thing. And we're getting all this. We're getting siege engines. We're getting vehicles. We're getting loads of tech and gadgets. You can be like Fantasy Batman if you want to be. We're getting all this sort of stuff. On top of all that, we're getting a load of lore. I don't think it's a Lost Omens book, but we're getting a load of stuff on Tianjia, Arcadia, which are very technologically advanced nations or continents they're beyond the inner sea region. We've not ever really seen anything of them. Alkenstar, which is the city where they make all the guns, which is not a million miles from Next. So it's and that's kind of where all the guns get manufactured, which eventually sort of make their way out. That all sounds pretty fun. So there's a lot of stuff in here. It's going to be priced at $50, $50 book. So it's same price point as Bestiary and things like that. Yeah, Ross.
I was going to ask you as a GM, and also for like to help out with everyone else, if you wanted to put this into your game, if you wanted to put guns and stuff and all this new technology into your game, which hasn't, because we've been going for 2 years now, so how would you go about that? Because it's that thing of like, do weapon sellers now just randomly appear and like, oh, you want guns? I can give you guns or whatever. How are you? If we are going to have those in the world, how would you go about introducing them into the DCP universe?
I think you do it slowly, and you do it in a way that these things are rare. This is the nice thing about these guns. It is viable that you could have been adventuring for this amount of time and just never met a gunslinger, because they come from a very specific part of the world. Weirdly, you might have more chance of seeing one at the moment because you're a lot closer to where they come from. So there's things you can do like that, but also there's, you don't describe every single item that you see in a shop all the time. So maybe guns were always kind of there in some stores, but you had to really go looking for them. It's just that you were never really looking for one, so you never really found one. So you can bring it in gradually. If you have a gunslinger player, gunslingers are also very self-sufficient. They can make a lot of their own ammo. They maintain their own gun because they know that they're not going to find another one for a while. So they do other upgrades and things to that. Yes. So that's kind of how you bring it in gently and
would you say to the players, sorry James, I was just going to follow on to it, would you say, because obviously now we know that they're going to bring this out, but obviously it's not going to be until like later in the year. So say if I went round and I was like, Dad, not that I would do this, but like say if I was like, oh, I want to look for a gun, or would you say, oh, you do find a gun but it's well above your price range or something, or would you just say because if you're saying, because the thing is, like you're saying, you're like, oh, because what I would think is it would be you'd see these things more around this area, but like not where we originally were from, and they're like it's a new thing that is starting to gradually become in the inner sea. What would you do in that sense?
If you said you wanted to go shopping one, I think the nice thing is with the playtest, there are enough rules to do it now because we've got rules for some firearms with this.
Yeah.
The playtest comes with a bunch of rules for guns. So we could start putting some in, but it would be with the understanding that they may change. A little bit like we did when Colin wanted to play a Tengu before we had the Tengu rules, and we built it off a half elf, and then when the Tengu came out, we did a couple of tweaks to kind of turn him back. Kind of bring it alongside with that. So we have done that before, and like we built a sort of proto witch with Brimbone before witches were available, and then used the playtest version for some records as well.
Yeah.
So that I'm fine with using playtest stuff if we really want to get it into the story.
Yeah, and I think obviously because I had the same thought, and you answered it very well, I think, Dan, and for any other GMs out there who might be concerned with this sort of stuff, because when Paizo released stuff like this, it kind of sounds like a mass load of guns falls from the sky, and all of a sudden everyone's running around with guns and things. Because, like you said, we're going to have guns and lots of guns. But I think, remember, it's your world, and you can introduce them as rare as you want. Also, GWatt makes the excellent comment, which we mentioned earlier, that luckily both guns and both classes are hidden behind the uncommon tag. So don't get scared. Keep it rare. Otherwise, you're going to have a world. If you want Galarian to stay as you want it to, so sort of mostly swords and magic and stuff, don't get them everywhere. Big shout out, actually Greg said of course specific regions like the Shackles where you could go to find gunslingers if you want, and also Persinio said my 9-year-old invented a sword that shoots bullets the other day. Will that be some kind of prestige class feature?
Gunblade.
Do they want a job with Paizo, mate? I mean, your 9-year-old is ahead of the curve. Like, get him in there. Get that CV in early.
There's something going on there.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that with any game system, as it grows to the kind of size that it's getting to now, the thing we love about Pathfinder is that it has lots of character options. But you have to remember that you don't have to use all of those. And when you are setting up a campaign, it is up to you as the GM with your players to set the parameters of the kind of game that you want to have. And if you don't want to have a game with guns in it, you shouldn't have to have that game. And also, if you want to limit complexity, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with saying, please only play core rulebook classes. You know, it's kind of, I get turned off when I start a 5e campaign and someone says, "Oh, go on D&D Beyond, I've got all the books," and you open it and there's like 600 character options. I'm just like, I don't know what the 2 types of bird people. I'm done with this. I'm just like, just tell me what to play. And I'm just like, I'm aware that this is exactly what I love about Pathfinder are all the options here. But it means that, you know, be aware of that as a GM. Now we've got more of these options coming in. Part of your job as a GM is to help guide your players through that and be like, okay, what do you want to do? Okay, maybe these 3 options here are the things you should be looking at. And kind of, you know, siloing is good. Siloing helps people make decisions in a crazy and busy world.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about
I was
What's
just
that,
going to
Russ?
say, what are the differences in Gunslinger First E to Second Edition?
I'm glad you asked. So, the Gunslinger in Second Edition, we were really wondering, because Gunslingers in First Edition and firearms in general are based all around touch AC, which is something very peculiar to that generation of game. It doesn't exist in Second Edition. I don't think it exists in 5th edition D&D. No. So it's basically touch AC was it was not a bad idea. It's this: you had flat-footed AC, regular AC, and touch AC. Flat-footed AC is if a thing just hits you and you don't move out of the way, how well do you stand up to it? Regular AC is if you're trying to move out of the way of something and you have armor, how well do you resist it? Touch AC is what if all it has to do is touch you? What if your armor does nothing against it? So it's like touch spells and things like that. And that's kind of how they worked in it. So touch AC tended to be very low, unless you're a character with loads and loads of decks, like a swashbuckler or a rogue. Your touch AC is quite low. And firearms attacked touch AC. So they needed to be a much lower number in order to hit you. The trade-off of that was that they misfired. So if you rolled a lower number with your gun, then it could mean that your gun might explode or your gun might jam. Both of those concepts are, to an extent, gone in Second Edition. Certainly touch AC is gone. So there's no rolling up, because if you have listened to certain podcasts with famous gunslingers on them, you will know that gunslingers do stupid damage at high level. Like they just keep shooting and they're just doing hundreds of damage because they can just keep rolling and reloading in one turn, and it's crazy. So now that has been limited a little bit to balance out. So guns do a lot less damage than they did, and they are shooting against regular AC. That is balanced out by a few things. For a start, if you're a gunslinger, you're starting off as expert in firearms. They're one of the only classes. I think fighters some fighters start as expert in one weapon group. But they've immediately got a much higher to hit number with guns, and it goes up quicker than a lot of other people. So they reach legendary quite quickly, or master quite quickly. So their to hit rolls are going to be very high, and what that means is they're going to be critting more often because of the 10. Getting 10 over EAC means that it's a critical hit. Guns don't shoot against touch AC. They've got a lower damage, but they have the fatal trait. The fatal trait basically means if you crit with this, fatal has a die attached to it, so it might be like fatal. It might be D6 damage, fatal D8. If you crit with that weapon, it means all of your D6s, and it might be multiple if you've got runes on it, they become D8s, and you get an extra D8 on top of it. So when you crit, the gun starts doing tons of damage. So the build for a Pathfinder is basically around trying to score as many critical hits as possible, because then your damage goes through the roof in it. They may be, as they are at the moment, capable of doing the most damage of any class at level 1. That's how they've gotten around it. Misfires are still there. You basically have to clean your gun at the start of the day, and if you do that, your gun probably won't misfire. It doesn't feel like a particularly impactful mechanic. It feels like something that's going to be forgotten quite quickly. I'm not sure how well it will make it through the playtest, but that's what it does on that.
That's quite interesting. I was just going to jump in because we were talking about explaining to a gunslinger about the rules and regulations. That sounds like something that GM's going to have to be pretty hot on. And if you don't say it, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, that's one of those things that, having been a player for years, you're like, oh, yeah, Dan, I did that at the beginning of the day. It's like, well, you didn't say you did. Yeah, well, the same way the wizard didn't say he prepared his spells. It's like, yeah, but, I think it means more. You have to make it feel more. How do you think about that?
That's why I don't like it, because I don't like repetitive things. I've talked several times about how much I love the potion making mechanic in The Witcher that makes you go and find the ingredients you need for your potion once. And then once you've found those ingredients, you can just make it whenever you want to make it, because it's only fun to do that once. And likewise, it's fun and atmospheric to describe how your gunslinger is cleaning their gun and preparing for the day ahead once. It's not fun to do that every single session when you're trying to start things out and just like, oh no, I clean my gun. And it's just like, for me, it needs to be more than that. There needs to be more something to that.
Well, I think it's we're getting a bit of agreement in the chat, because it's definitely one of those things that, of course, in role playing, we all love role playing. I don't feel the need to role play going to the toilet, and yet we assume our characters do that multiple times throughout the day. But of course, unless you're particularly keen on that, I think it falls under that category. Chris said that's going to become a just assume I did it thing. I completely agree. Greg doesn't like it. Seems unnecessary. Greg did make a good comment, though. Fighters start as expert in all, including guns, which is probably the only reason gunslingers get it, which is quite interesting.
I imagine that will get errated, that they won't be expert in guns. It's possible they might be, but I think they will want to keep guns as being a specific thing for gunslingers or something you need with an archetype. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
but the thing is that they're meant
weird.
to be great with everything, whereas these guys are kind of, they're more specific.
It's possible, I mean, because Greg says it'll only come up if you've been thrown in jail and the guards leave it stashed in a corner. What makes the interesting comment, though, apparently someone posted on Reddit that it's good for found weapons, so it prevents the instant use of loot, which I quite like.
That's quite nice.
I like that.
So if you pick up a gun, it won't work straight away. That's nice.
And you've got to clean it first and be like, well, it's covered in the dust of ages or something like that. So that's thanks for that, G. That's good.
It could be it could be that cleaning the weapon is a gunslinger specific ability, and so like you might find a gun as a cleric and you can shoot someone with it, but over time that gun is going to start degrading because you don't know how to look after it. That could be something. I don't know. Do you want to hear? So one of the interesting things was we were talking about crossbows earlier on, and Ed Johnson specifically. So all of the abilities that the gunslinger has applying to firearms also apply to crossbows. So if you don't want to have firearms, but you do want to play with these kind of mechanics, then you can make a crossbow ace. I think Candice talked about making Buffy the Vampire Slayer as a character. So you can make someone who's great with a crossbow, which I think is nice because it takes that strain away from rangers. Rangers have a crossbow build, which is basically what you have to do if you want to make a really good crossbow character. You can sort of do it with a fighter, but if you want to make a really good crossbowman, then you did it with ranger before, which is why Ed Johnson was a ranger.
It doesn't feel very rangery.
But I kind of feel like that's not really a ranger's job,
No, crossbows don't, because I know we try and strive away from archetypes and things, but sometimes they're there for a reason. And you imagine a ranger. I don't know about you, Ross, how you feel about this, but with a bow, stalking through the trees and all this kind of stuff. Not a crossbow. What do you think? Are you still keen on gunslingers after hearing all this, Ross?
Yeah, I do. I think that they'll get a lot of people giving them good feedback on them. Like, I find it weird that they have. That the fighter has expert in firearms and everything else, and the guns. Like Dan said, I assume that they're probably going to have to errata that and say that they're not anymore. And I think they may have to change a few other classes, like to make the gunslinger worth it. It doesn't seem like, I don't know. It sounds like the gunslinger is very OP at the moment. I assume they're going to put in stuff that will make that not the case, because if there's no misfire, and the only thing that enables them not to misfire is to clean their gun at the beginning of the day or whatever mechanic they use, it seems like, oh well, then I'm just going to keep blasting away.
Well, it's balanced by the fact that guns have the reload trait, so they're like a crossbow. So you can't just fire every single turn. You can higher reload fire, although there are feats that let you do a bit more of that. And the damage, the base damage is a lot lower than it was. So that and the range is quite short. That kind of balances it up. Do you want to hear some of their abilities and things to like?
Yeah, go on then.
We will.
You're going to get 3 ways. So every class has subclass. Most classes have subclasses. So you get 3. When you pick the class, you're going to pick 3 ways. You're going to either be the way of the drifter. If you're the drifter, then you dual wield a firearm and a melee weapon. So if you want to make your pirate, that's how you do it. You've got a cutlass and a pistol. That's how you do that. You've got the way of the pistolero, which is 10 paces and turn just for fun, son. They actually have an ability called 10 paces where they get a bonus to initiative and can walk 10 paces away from their opponent at the start of combat.
Amazing.
And they will be the ones who are like dual wielding pistols. And then you've got the way of the sniper, who is long range stuff. And there are arquebuses that need like support tripods and things and do insane damage if you crit with them. A lot of the feats are things like their versions of quick draw, bonuses to initiative, extra movement. Pistoleros can get a ranged attack of opportunity. So if you miss, the pistolero just shoots you. The feats are insane. Depending on what you want from your game, you will either love or hate some of these feats. There's lots of dual wielding feats that let you John Woo around with pistols. There is one for there's one of them for the drifter that lets you throw your melee weapon at an opponent and then shoot the melee weapon, causing it to hit their opponent with more force and then ricochet back into your hand.
Oh my god!
Right,
John Woo.
I mean,
yeah.
This is. I think you've hit on an interesting thing it's been something of an undercurrent of this because I'm really excited about this. This is exciting, guns, all this kind of stuff. But I imagine a lot of GMs will see that and say, I am not having that in my game because it just opens the door to a world of player exploitation where it's like, no, because I throw it round the corner because I can do that, and then my bullet hits it and it bounces off, and it's like, oh god, because it's a bit Matrix.
It's a little bit too funky for a standard ability for me.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the other. I'm more on board with the rocket jump one that they have. There's one that lets you basically jump, and while you're jumping, fire your guns behind yourself to make you jump further. I'm like, that's fun. That's the right level of crazy for me. The ricochet one is pushing it for me.
Yeah.
I would love a player to do it once and for it to be a once in a campaign amazing thing. For it to be part of your attack rotation is getting a little bit, that's getting a bit Super Nintendo for me.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I think, I don't know, throwing the weapon, okay. Shooting it to make it go faster into somebody. All right, that's pushing it to the limit. Having it bounce back in your hand, that's too much. I think that's a case of like, come on. It would look cool if you're like, pow, and it goes slam, and you're like, yeah. And that's how you killed the baddie who was about to pull the thing. But
you'd imagine that you could like try, it would be easier to just do a ricochet shot, as in you shoot someone, they take kind of most of the damage, but some of the damage is transferred to a nearby enemy. That would be, I think that would work.
That'd be great. I think there probably is a ricochet. That, or I'd love one where you can use your teammate as the line of sight. So you can shoot the champion and ricochet it off their shield and hit someone that they're fighting. Things like that.
Yeah, that's quite nice that uses somebody else. Just interestingly enough, apparently the scatter blast, which is 2 actions. Check out the misfire crit fail on this one, and apparently some of the powerful feats have misfire. Apparently, it's quite a common. It's not just G1 and Greg both say it's in a few abilities. But apparently, scatter blast has a great misfire crit. And just a little fun fact from Greg as well. He is on fire today. The crossbow ranger is a weird legacy of the Paizo iconic artwork. Apparently, they drew a ranger with a crossbow, and they became iconic, and so they added rules for it.
Nice.
I know. So because it does feel a bit weird.
That's happened.
Yeah,
but it's like I say, if I play a ranger, it's because I want to do ranger stuff. I want to have an animal companion or be doing hunting, or I don't want to just be pouring all my feats into being good at a crossbow. Whereas this lets you do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Shall we talk about the Inventor quickly? Because I'm aware that we're not. I know we started late, but I'm aware
We didn't start that late. So yeah, let's crack on and talk about the Inventor.
All right. The Inventor. The Inventor will take less time to talk about because it's very peculiar, and will take a little bit more time to digest fully, I think. My first note for the Inventor is just, this is mad. So the Inventor is the first completely original second edition character class. So every other character class we've had is a conversion of something that already exists in first edition, either as I think they have all been classes, not archetypes. So this is the first one that is completely new. The Inventor is a crafter, but it is a frontline combat crafter. It's not a support character like a lot of alchemists are, where you're making potions and giving them to people and things. So you're intelligence based, which is weird for a frontline fighter, but probably opens up some interesting stuff. You're all built around your innovations. So you build stuff that you use to help you in combat. You have 3 options when you choose your path, 3 things that you might make as your innovation. You either pick armor, construct, or weapon. If it's armor, you are Iron Man, basically. You can make armor that transforms into like a suitcase that you can carry around and then transforms into your armor. It can fly at higher levels. You can describe sort of all the ways it does it. You can change the resistances that it has. If it's a weapon, similar. It looks very similar, I think, to some of the Eidolon rules for the summoner, where you like customize and build and design this summoned creature, except you do it with a weapon. And then a construct, obviously, is your personal robot, which you can change and convert, and maybe a bit like a drone, I guess, or again like an Eidolon. So it's an animal companion, but it's a robot, and again, it can transform into small things, and it can do rockets, and it sounds.
Yeah, sorry, I had to make the sound.
I have no idea what to make of this class. It's got some really nice artwork for it, early Wayne Reynolds artwork of an orc with his little goblin robot, which I'm sure will steal a lot of people's hearts.
How are they explaining the robots are powered and stuff? Is it cogs and gears, or is it?
So clockwork robots have been a thing in Pathfinder for a while. They're a bit like golems, but they have perpetual motion clockwork machinery that kind of powers them and makes them run. It feels very World of Warcraft to me, very World of Warcraft goblin kind of stuff.
That's interesting. So there's no magic involved at all. I assume there was an element of arcana.
No, they're not casters. They build their stuff themselves. So I think part of the idea is that they're going to be bringing in some of these new places like Tianjara and Arcadia and Alkenstar to a point where the technology level is really different to this. So if you're playing an Inventor, you're not necessarily playing somebody from Absalom who built a robot. You're playing a traveler from far off lands with their crazy technology.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people like it, because one of the nice things about Pathfinder is the variety, and that it does have this kind of, it has a wacky side that you can have, and you can embrace that and be like, yeah, we're going to have robot horse riding cowboy orcs, and we're going to do that. I think more than anything, more than the Gunslinger for me is a tread carefully class. It's a really decide if you want to have this in your game, because it is a very different kind of game. And to an extent, I've always been fascinated by technology in fantasy settings, because I think, for me, the Gunslinger is sort of very indicative of this. It's like the Old West. Once this arrives in a fantasy setting, there is now a clock on the life of an adventurer. You cannot be fighter, elf, dwarf, and wizard delving into dungeons for very much longer once the gun exists, because that is a definite technological step, and that's a step towards civilization and a step towards kind of an end of the way of life. It's kind of Red Dead Redemption to me once this kind of technology starts appearing in this fantasy setting, because the old way kind of falls away. I think that's very interesting. I think it's a really interesting topic to explore in a role-playing game, and I love doing it. Be sure that is the story you want to be telling in your game, if you're going to start introducing stuff like this. Because if you've got an inventor who can invent a robot, or he can invent a suit of armor that can fly, then why can't he invent a coffee machine? And if you can invent a coffee machine, then why can't he invent, just be aware of the if you have creative players, be aware of the can of worms you might be opening up.
I absolutely agree. This all sounds lots of fun. Because, well, I tell you what, Ross, what do you feel about this sort of because I'm broadly in agreement with Dan. What do you feel?
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think you're right in terms of if you are that good of an inventor that you can invent a robot that doesn't use magic to move and live, then you are opening up a can of worms. I feel that class may be, I think both of them, I think they're going to get a lot of feedback. Even the Discord, when it was firing on all cylinders, wasn't it? When we said that we're going to talk about that, everyone was talking about both classes and stuff. I think a lot of hardcore Pathfinder players may not use any of these classes, or may not have them in their games. The Inventor sounds a little bit like Vigilante, but without obviously but it being an actual suit that is effective, and actually rather than it just be sort of like a Batman type hiding you from thing. I think that would be quite cool, playing like a sort of Batman type vigilante.
Yes.
They actually have a there's the feat names are great. There's everything like "No, I created you." There's a feat in it that I'm trying to find at the moment. There's a feat in here which is reaction, which is the Batman feat, which is you were failed to account for this, which is a reaction you can do when somebody targets you with an attack that lets you basically just pull something out of your belt that gives you a resistance or gives you a bonus against it. Because it's you always have a little plan, a spare plan. That's quite fun.
I do like the comment was made earlier, because it does sound very steampunk. It's hard not to class an inventor with a sort of high RP accent, being like, "Ha ha!" Have some of this. Just going to return, because I said that I agree. Sort of with your comments, Dan. That's how I feel about it. Greg says, very nice comment. That clock comment incredibly articulates something I've always struggled to put my finger on in terms of why I've never been fully on board with a gunslinger, and how short the Wild West actually was in terms of our history. And it is very much like that. I feel the same, because once you open up the door to guns, once they become firmly established, you get the subjugation of creatures. Suddenly, the horrible thing that lurks in the cave, actually, it's not that horrible at all. So they then start hunting them to extinction, and you just see in a million different ways the passing of the old world, where, like you say, used to delve into dungeons, and now they're tourist attractions where people go to be a bit scared, to relive the glory days of when people used to go in there with swords. And it is very much signs of that.
If you wanted to create a massive story arc that you're going to do over 3-4 years, and you want to do that in your game, where you want to show the maybe you've been adventuring for a year, and then this technology starts to creep into your games more and more, and then you expand on it. That'd be an interest, if that's what you want in your game. If you want to have a game where you're actually advancing time and you're doing that clock thing, that would be quite interesting. But I feel that it's going to be one of those things where they're going to be few and far between.
I think one of the conversations I'd definitely have, if somebody sat down and said, okay, I want to be an inventor, I'd be like, great, I'd like you to tell me what your robot is, and I want you to tell me how you came up with it. None of this, I'm going to have a robot horse that transforms into a rocket. No. How did you come up with this? Because you could also have, like Dan said, I think another excellent comment, you could embrace that and have, maybe your inventor, by the end of a 2-year campaign, their invention's going to mean so much do they go through with it, or do they command it to walk into the sea and never come out again because of the way it's going to change the world? And perhaps they were just doing that. It's a bit of a tried and tested, but the naive inventor who would create something and then, oh no, I didn't intend this to happen. I didn't mean to cause an end to the old world. I just thought, it'd be a useful thing to have. So who knows? Maybe that's what these classes are for.
I think that, the change is what's most interesting to me for that. And it has to be a part of the world. If you're bringing this stuff, I'd love GMs to bring this stuff in, but bring it in gradually. You start seeing a few Clockwork ththings around, and then maybe you see more of them. And then maybe, this sense that because the thing about fantasy worlds is they never change. They've been the 1200s England forever. And I like this idea that there is a sense of change. That's the point of Lord of the Rings. Is at a point of change. It's the end of the Age of Elves. It's the beginning of the time of man. Disruption is interesting to this, and it's interesting to me because I think ultimately an adventurer has more in common with the orc warlord in a dungeon than they do with the man in the street back in the city. And I think that realization is fascinating. I think there's something really in that of realizing that you're actually on the wrong side of history if you're an adventurer.
Yes.
Maybe
yes,
I've been playing too much Red Dead.
No. But I think it's an excellent comment, and obviously this is just an idea for Chris already says that Dan just gave me a great campaign idea. This is sometimes these are what these classes are introduced for, to give you something to work with as a GM to create these worlds. You don't have to use the rules, but like you say, just introduce some little bits of change. And also, I like the fact that delving into a dungeon and potentially getting killed to looking for treasure, that's not normal. Most people are bakers. Most people make shoes. Like, what are you doing? But I could find a sword that allows me to kill even bigger things. It's like, what are you doing?
High risk, high reward,
Yeah, it's true.
It's very like Wakanda, really, isn't it? The place where they invent all this stuff, and they've got all these all these people have invented all these advanced technologies. You could do it like that. Like it's like they're in their own sort of little world, and then when people start to leave, people are like looking at those inventions like, what the hell are these things, and could try and steal them or think of them as enemies.
It's true. GWatt comes in with a sort of interesting comment about alchemy is also non-magical, but it creates magical-like effects, creating life as well through different means. I think technology is still gated behind individuals who are heroic figures, not just everyday people. I mean, that's very true, and that's why we role-play these things, because nobody wants to role-play being a baker who, gets up at 5 a.m. and makes his bread and, all this kind of stuff. We play these near fantastical... Well, I mean, Dan does. Only he's got a robot assistant who actually...
Robot baker!
His oven is a robot that can walk around, and he just says, bread. That's if Ross was the GM of that particular game, because Ross loves verbose technology. Good God. It can't be a toaster or a shoe without it saying what it is. We love it. But it is very much that sort of heroic figures. But of course, that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Because that's the sort of the crux, where it goes from not just being these odd heroic characters who are wandering around with clockwork things, but actually the guy who comes to your door and says, would you like to buy the clockwork thing that helps cook your food? And suddenly that technology isn't the preserve of the weird and the mystical and the fantastical. It's just everywhere. And that's the death of the old world, isn't it? That's when you're like, oh, I guess. GWatt. Gwat. Oh, Gwat. Oh, it's pronounced Gwat, not GWatt. I'm terribly sorry. GWatt. That's me.
Don't worry.
I'm so street.
Don't worry, Dangerlings. I'm going to try and add a third character into my pool of characters to play a gunslinger, and then maybe an inventor. Have 4. Why not?
Why not? Maybe you could play them all at once. I mean, who knows? Your talents are boundless. But I did see, and it is interesting to see your reaction actually on the video as Dan was describing that, because I could see your mind working, being like, And I think that's these are appealing classes. I quite like the sound of an inventor myself, but again, it's sort of, I think, comes with a warning.
I think it will be one of those classes that in 6 months' time will be the thing I want to play. Like right now, I really want to play a druid. Or I really want to play and classes that I had no interest in when they first came out, and it's just because I've had enough time to read them and see what other people have done with them and be like, oh, okay, here's how I want to play a bard at the moment. We'll talk about that in another show. I suddenly want to play a bard, which I hate.
I I really want to play a gunslinger. Like from playing it with you in Pathfinder Society, like I like that. I like that you're kind of unique, and I like the old west sort of like, yeah, my name's Bill fucking Manson.
Bill Manson.
Bill fucking Manston.
Yeah,
Heard it here
Right,
first,
good
anyway.
names.
yeah, that's the new. Yeah, I like that. I like the use. I like guns. I like guns. So yeah,
I love the way you were striving for a more in detail and in depth answer, but actually
Yeah.
comes down to the fact you like guns.
Yeah.
Guns are cool. Guns are sexy. You know, a lot of people like guns. I mean, America's in love with guns. You know, it's one of those
it's
things
true.
that they are powerful and deadly, and you know, and it also, without sounding too sort of going off on one, feudal Japan. That was a very clear difference where suddenly you had people who dedicated their entire lives to mastering the sword, and a peasant stood no chance, to then suddenly the peasant could hold a stick, fire it at the guy who'd been training to be this honourable swordsman his whole life, and kill him dead.
Yeah.
And suddenly that's a huge power shift in what can be done. People don't need trainings. You don't need to train to be your life to be a longbowman. You could just, there you go, that's the bit you don't look down, pointed over there.
It's like that scene in Indiana Jones where he's like the guy's swishing around the sword and he just pulls out the gun and shoots him.
Yeah. Which apparently is because he had diarrhea.
Yeah,
So they
yeah,
didn't
I've heard there was a big fight
It's
scene.
It's supposed to be a big
isn't it?
fight scene.
That's kind of, yeah. It's disruptive, and I quite like that. I think if we didn't want weird stuff, we'd all still be playing Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's we like, the reason there are different game systems and there are different things is that we like variety. And I think sometimes you have to shake the tree and you have to just trust him. You don't have to use this if you don't want to use this, but if you do, here's a world within a world that you can throw in there. I think you will find from this contrast with the Secrets of Magic playtest, which is coming out a little bit sooner for the Magus and the Summoner. I think those classes were mechanically controversial, but stylistically very safe. Everyone expected those to be classes that would come in.
Yeah.
There was a lot of debate about how they actually worked. I think you will see those classes come out very different. These ones, I think, are mechanically safer. I think you won't see as many changes with these for the finished product, but stylistically, they're always going to be a point of debate, and that's great. I love that there's always going to be debate about whether you have them or what makes a good game.
Yeah,
They're there if you want to use them, and if you don't want to use them, you don't have to use them.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it simple if you want, or make it complex. It's up to you, because it's your sandbox. Make whatever castles and things you want. Well, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much to all the Dangerlings who've been so active in the chat, talking about it. I loved, it's certainly, a reflection of what we were just saying, that this is going to cause quite a lot of discussions. Of course, if you're not a member of the Discord already, jump on the Discord and continue the discussion there. We love hearing all about what you're doing, and you'll find many like-minded people there. And thank you so much, guys. This has been terrific. Are we liking the new time?
Yeah,
this
suits. I think this should be. Hopefully, this is a bit nicer for anyone not in UK land, and it works a bit better if people are coming back from work. So I think we're going to stick with this new time. Hopefully,
yes.
You can listen to it whilst you're eating dinner, or having a fancy wine.
I knew there was a Harmston list coming.
Or you could have it whilst looking at a painting on a wall. Or you could look at it whilst watching an episode of Deal or No Deal on repeat on Channel 5.
So many. And in
speaking of repeats, if the way you want to watch it, if the audio of this, as always, will be out on Patreon in a few hours' time if you're one of our patrons, and the video of it will go on YouTube next week. The Big Dangerous Quiz of the Year just went up on YouTube today, so if you haven't watched that yet, grab a pen and paper and have a go at that and see if you're better at knowing things about the podcast than we are, because we were not good at it.
Definitely.
It was great fun.
Definitely better than us. And in fact, Amy watched this whilst eating dinner. So there we go. Boom.
Yes, that's right.
The system works. The cosmic balance is restored. So glad that some of our new people, Persinio, I'm terrible at pronouncing names today, and Gwat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully see you next week for another Dangerous Wednesdays at 7 p.m. GMT. Of course, there'll be lots of stuff dropping before then. And thank you so much, guys. So I guess it's goodbye from Ross.
Goodbye.
Good behave. Good.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I asked you to say goodbye. And it's goodbye from Dan.
Good day, good night, and bang.
Bang, 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 bang,
Bam,
bang.
bam.
Bam, bang, bang, bam, bam. And thank you so much. It's good night from me, James Foxy Lockhart. You've been tuning into Dangerous Wednesdays. Thank you, join us. Thank you for joining us. Come see us soon. And remember, stay Wednesdays. I'm just submitting now. See you later, guys. Bye.